Hiya, so today I'm going to talk about the port in a mouthpiece. Now, the port is a bit of a debatable point, and the reason for that is in some instances and designs it is included to try and allow some tongue relief to the horse. In others, you can see that is clearly not the reason. So when does a port offer pleasantries and when does it offer punishment? So I'm going to look at a few mouthpieces today and show you the variations of a port. Now, to those who don't know, a port is, how do I put this simply, it's a deviation of a straight bar within the mouth of the bit. So it can be a very slight undulation, it can be a very punishing deviation of that bar. So I'm going to take you through a few of them so we can have a look and see what we think is going to offer relief, what is going to offer pain. So our first one, we have a little magic snaffle here. Quite a nice lightweight little bit. It's got a fairly thin mouthpiece, which is quite good for most horses, despite what our traditions tell us. If a horse can't shut its lips around what's in its mouth, it's not in for a good time. And there's so many other things I could say about that, but I'm not going to. So we have, as you see, small, fairly shallow port to it. Now you can see that this is going to offer a little bit of tongue relief. It's not going to offer a lot. The horse's tongue is probably about, let me get my fingers out the way, it's about that wide underneath here. So you're only going to be pushing the very top part of the tongue up into this space. But that can offer a little bit of relief to the horse. Can it get its tongue still over? Absolutely, yes it can. Because the horse is always going to retract that tongue. And the more pressure that tongue is under, the more it's going to try and do that. So we have a bit of a quandary. Because the bit is always going to lay on the tongue. The horse is always going to retract the tongue. But when it does, it can get the tongue over the bit, as we know. That's not a lot of fun for the horse or for us. The port is then described as something to stop the horse getting the tongue over the bit. So we've already got a couple of reasons as to why we have this port in the mouthpiece. So this is one of the most shallow kind of ports that you will see. It's fairly kind to the horse's mouth. There is going to be some rotation with the rein action, but if you can see from the side, how can I show you this without getting in the way? If you can see from the side, it's not going to make an awful lot of impact with the roof of the horse's mouth. Now, it's worth pointing out here that the amount of horses that I have seen over the years and continue to see that do not have the room in their mouth for a joint or for a port. And it is very easy to find that out. If you slide a finger, an index finger, in the side of the mouth where the bit sits, so you're going to sit along with the bit in the horse's mouth, slide your finger over the centre of that mouthpiece. If your finger is making contact with the roof of your horse's mouth, it cannot take a joint and it cannot take a port. Now, some horses have a slightly more concave roof to their mouth. Some have a slightly flatter. A younger horse will, generally speaking, have quite a flat roof of its mouth, sometimes even bulging very slightly downwards. So we have to be very careful what we are putting in our horses in their mouth conformation and indeed for their age. So this is the shallow kind of port, okay? So the next kind of size up of port that we'll go to is the Kimblewick here. Now, in essence, if you take away the curb chain, and some Kimblewicks have rein slots on these bit rings, however, this could just as easily pass as a D-ring snaffle if you're not going to use these curb chains and you're not using rein slots. But you'll see that the port here is slightly bigger than the last. Can you see that? So it's now offering, quotes, more tongue relief. it's also going to be harder for the horse to get its tongue over that bit, because you can see from the side it gives you that raise here. Now again, if we think about the conformation we've got going on here, the tongue is sitting here, okay? It's going to sit to about that much of this mouthpiece. So the centre of the tongue is going to get squeezed up into this arc here. Now these corners here, they're not too sharp. However, as soon as that horse moves its tongue, these are going to start embedding into each lateral side of the tongue. So as we activate the rein, just pulling it back, if we get this rotation, we're going to start making impact on the roof of the mouth and the nerves within it. We are also facilitating a horse twisting its tongue slightly because there's room to do so in this port. So the tongue will go like this and start trying to retract. Now often riders will complain that they feel that the horse is leaning on the bit, and actually often it's where the tongue is bunching up behind the mouthpiece and the horse is not trying to push the bit away, although in essence it probably is trying to do that. But it's just the physicality of where that tongue ends up sitting against the bit, and that causes a lean. Now very often people will mistake that the horse is getting hold of the bit, it's leaning on the bit, they'll make all kinds of excuses, but that's actually what's happening. Now that's a horse protecting its tongue. If we're going to put a noseband around that, we have to understand that we're not making the situation better for the horse, we are potentially just trying to make it better for ourselves. So here's the slightly bigger port, as you see, on the Kimblewick. And again, you can get many different makes of bits that have got these ports in them. I'm just picking these because they've got a gradient of port in them, okay? So if we look at this one here, now this is a little Weymouth bit here. It is quite small as well. But you'll see that there is a port here. Now it's quite a narrow port. It's a thick bar here, which would not be very comfortable considering that there will be another bit in this horse's mouth, okay? Because it is a Weymouth, it would have, pardon me, but it would have something like this as a double bridle, okay? So if we look at that port there, we can see that it is trying to offer some tongue relief. However, it's probably a big contradiction because the bars of this are so thick that they're going to be pushing on that tongue. So the only relief that this horse is going to get is the centre of the tongue going up into this little notch here, okay? So it's making an attempt to offer some relief. However, this is a curb bit. So we're now driving down those thick bars onto the bars of the horse's mouth. This is going to make some contact with the roof of the mouth purely because of the thickness of the mouthpiece here. But it doesn't actually offer any relief because it is simply too bulky. Most horses will not be able to shut their lips around that. And that is very, very important. You want the horse almost sucking on the bit like a lozenge. You want them a closed mouth, a relaxed mouth. Now that really only comes from whoever is on the end of the reins, right? Again, I refer to dogs and their leads here because it's really kind of the same. You can see many, many dogs turn into absolute lunatics with the wrong person on the end of the lead. The horse is the same, right? Our hands are absolutely the key to bitting, not the horse. So if you've got this kind of thing in the horse's mouth and you think you're offering some relief, you have to take into account the other problems that you're giving the horse. Yes, you're giving it a modicum of relief in the centre of its tongue. However, you're giving it all the weight on the bars of the mouth. You're giving all the leverage and the poundage that we can draw through that lever onto the bars of the mouth. This will now be crushing the tongue. So this central small port is not going to make any difference at all. The horse will retract its tongue from this, but as I say, it's a thick mouthpiece. So it's not going to be able to get its tongue over the bit too well. As I say, there would be another bit there as well. However, just to use this again, you can imagine the pain if a horse does manage to retract its tongue and ends up in a situation where that tongue is wedged between the two mouthpieces. It does happen. Okay, so that's a slightly lower port here, a little notch here, but it's not really offering much in the way of relief. So then we come on to the segundo. I probably have said that wrong. There's a guy on YouTube who says it sounds so sexy, but I don't think I can do that the same justice. So we'll go with my theory. Segundo. So this is not making any pretense at all of giving your horse relief. It's not. This port here is about causing maximum pain, minimum effort. If you see, we've got these, I don't know even what you'd call them. I'm going to call them notches. But the base of this arc here, if I show you up close, you can see that that is not even making a pretense of offering your horse any comfort at all. Now, this is, it's a vicious bit of kit, frankly. The fact that we have a curb chain on it disturbs me. However, these things are widely available, and although they are sold with the proviso that they're only used on highly trained horses and very experienced riders, there's not a rider alive who can make this right. There is no relief. If we take it from the side, you'll see that slight angle of the port, which the others don't have. Let me just refer to the Kimberwick again. You see the Kimberwick is straight, okay? But you see this one. You see that? Okay. So, if this is sitting in the horse's mouth at about this angle, any rein pressure is going to start doing this. Now, that's going to be driving those notches here down into the tongue. The tongue is going to do one thing. It's going to try and get out the way, right? That's all it's going to do. The horse is going to try and get its tongue out of the way because that hurts. If the horse raises its head, the bit is going to do that. And if that hits into the roof of the mouth, you are guaranteed to cause excruciating pain, not just to the roof of the mouth and the structures and tissues there, but the palatine nerve is never going to have any relief once this hits it. Now, this is still technically a port. Is it stopping the horse getting the tongue over the bit? Absolutely. Most horses are not going to be able to clear that with their tongue. However, it creates a world of pain for the horse. The fact that we have the curb chain on it too, and there are variations of these that are more curb bits with this same segundo port. But we're now going to be exerting a lot of pressure into that chin groove area, onto those nerves. And this is going to be grinding up against the palate. You see, there isn't room for this in a horse's mouth. Any horse's mouth, and I've put my hand in a lot of horses' mouths. There is not a mouth that can physically take this bit. So anybody using this kind of bit is doing not only an injustice, but I would argue an act of abuse, if I'm honest. If the horse can't accommodate what you've got in its mouth, even just standing there without any rein action, you're not giving that horse any chance at all. Any chance at all. And this is meant to be a partnership. And unfortunately, it's not always seen as a partnership. It's seen as a show 'em who's boss. Stand your ground. Stand up to him. Get after him. That kind of mentality. And I find that very upsetting. And I find it very disturbing. So that's our higher kind of port. Now I've got a bit here which is actually really badly made, really badly made. Again, this was actually in my collection. I would not use this on a horse because it's badly made, but I want to illustrate a point here. So here we have, can you see that? It's a high port joint. Now there's so many things wrong with this, I almost don't know where to start, but I'm here so I've got to. So first of all, you can see that it's a curb bit. Okay, we've got the long shanks. We've got the curb chain. So we've got all of that going on. And now we've got this in the mouth. Now, you will see that it breaks just like a jointed snaffle. Okay, you can see that. But look closely at that central joint. We have this just grinding up into the roof of the horse's mouth. Every step, that will be grinding. Again, if I hold it up against me, you can see how that's going to work. Now, like I said earlier, if you can't put an index finger over the mouthpiece of your bit to the central joint or the port that is in that horse's mouth, if you can't get your finger over that with some wiggle room, that bit does not fit that horse and does not belong in that mouth. Their conformation varies, of course it does. Placement of the canine teeth, even placement of the premolars. I've met horses that the diastema is so small that a jointed bit would just be out of the question. You just have to rule certain kind of mouthpieces out. But a lot of people don't do that. They just keep trying the next one, the next one, the next one, without really understanding what their horse can actually just physically deal with, let alone respond to. And an uncomfortable horse, or one that's not working willingly, or is fearful of the pain that's going on in its mouth, is never going to give you a true reflection of what that horse is. It's only ever going to be seen as difficult, as touchy, as sensitive, and people are going to get after it, and you know, you just need to get hold of it and make it work. I despair. I despair. So the pain that this is going to cause is instant and persistent, because as soon as that's in the horse's mouth, that's where it's going to sit, grinding into the roof of the mouth every single time that horse moves. So say, for instance, you want to see your horse mouthing at the bit, being a bit more, not chewy on it, but a relaxed kind of fiddling, right? Horse can't do that. Horse can't do that in this, because what's going to happen is every single move is going to grind up into the roof of the mouth. There will be no reprieve. And as soon as you activate the bit, you've not only got this pressure, i.e. our curb leverage pressure, but then we've got the brake in the mouthpiece as well. So now it's a mobile lump of pain, as opposed to a static lump of pain. Now, unfortunately, again, this sort of bit is widely available. People believe, for various reasons, usually tradition, if I'm honest, that, oh, well, you know, if he gets his tongue over the bit, then you need a port, darling. Have you looked in the horse's mouth? Can it even accommodate the jointed bit that you're putting in, let alone a port? Where is the roof of the mouth in relation to your bit? And what happens when that bit is activated? Now, if we're not going to look at that, these sort of things are going to keep being manufactured. They're going to keep being put into poor horses' mouths. Now, I'm not trying to be a hippie, green kind of turn them all out in a field and we'll all eat glitter kind of person. Although if anyone's up for that, count me in. However, we do owe it to our horses to understand when something is offering relief and when something is offering punishment. We can't expect a horse to show us acceptance if all it gets is pain and punishment. We can't expect that, but we do. And then we punish the horse more because it can't do what we're asking it to do. So that's a little go through some of the ports, and you can see, if I refer back to our humble little magic snapple at the beginning, you can see the difference. You can see that, can't you? Quite a difference, I think you'll agree. Now this might not be for everybody, but most horses could accommodate it, at least for a while. This is for nobody, and no horse will be able to accommodate this, even for a while. So I hope that that helped. I'm going to put some pictures up at the end of this of just a few other high-ported bits, just for interest's sake. Most of them are Western bits, because they tend to use the curb bits a lot. I'm not having a go at the Western people any more than I'm ever having a go at anybody. I think all horsey people owe it to their animals to be much more savvy about the effect of what we are actually doing to them when we put this stuff in their faces. And then we have to be a lot more honest and self-effacing about our ability to handle that bit of equipment. People will use prong collars on dogs, for instance. Again, I don't agree with them, but I see the point for a short time of training. However, they've got to be in the hands of a very experienced trainer. The same as these bits are then sold as got to be under the supervision of a trainer. Yet anybody can go and buy them. So nobody is monitoring this. Nobody is saying, I'm not going to sell you this bit until we have had someone down to check your horse, to check your ability, your horse's conformation, its dentition. Nothing. You can just go and buy them. So therefore that's a nonsense. Because if anyone can buy them, who's to say who's supervising? Who's to say? And unfortunately, there's a heck of a lot of overinflated egos in the animal world, actually, not just the horse world, that they believe that there is nothing more that they can learn. They know it all. And so if they've decided they're going to put this in their horse's mouth, well, so be it. And I think that's a travesty. I'm not going to lie. I think that's a travesty. So the port of the bit, it can offer relief, but it can also offer an awful lot of pain. Anyway, I hope that you enjoyed that. I'll see you again soon. Bye now.